What's up? So, I watched Thunder Force. I was talking Thunder Force. Thunder Force. The Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer movie on Netflix. And man, that was definitely a movie. Probably shouldn't have been, but it definitely was one. So, I'm just gonna get right into this. This movie is about this gamma rays or some radioactive waves in the 1980s that hit the Earth and it changes the DNA in a lot of people, and the people who get superpowers are sociopaths. So sociopathic individuals get superpowers, and the villains that are created from that are basically called miscreants, dubbed by the people in society. Now, these miscreants end up, there's one attack in Chicago. The movie is based in Chicago, and there's an attack in Chicago that happens that leads to Emily, the character in the movie, this little girl named Emily's parents dying. Now, moving forward, now Emily, she's this nerdy kind of gawky, geeky girl, and she's getting bullied one day after school, after being a smarty pants, and here comes Lydia to the rescue. They become best friends. You know the trope. They become best friends, grow up together, and then they split up a little bit before, toward the end of high school. Emily's trying to make some of her life and do something to honor her parents. And Lydia is just kind of there. And she's like, oh, I can't be like you. She just leaves her around. Just leaves her there. Lydia's all hurt. And fast forward some odd years later, Lydia becomes Melissa McCarthy, and she's working at some manual labor job. And Emily becomes a big-time engineer or scientist. Big-time genetic engineer, and she's opening up a laboratory that's coming to Chicago. Well, Lydia hears about this, and she's trying to get Emily to come down to the high school reunion. So she pulls up to the lab herself, and they link up after about 15 years or so, whatever. I don't know how many years went by, but they link up after a long time, a lot, talking to each other and being best friends anymore. And they do the catching up part, and Emily shows her around a little bit. Now, Emily leaves her in this expensive laboratory with a bunch of stuff around. She tells her the magic words, hey, don't touch anything. And what do you think Lydia does? Old Handy Manny touches everything, and next thing you know, she's strapped to a chair, and there's little needles going in her face, and some bunch of stuff happens to her. Emily pulls up, and she's like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? I told you not to touch anything. It's just one of the biggest problems I had with this movie was just that for a buddy cop film, there wasn't much buddy stuff going on. It did not look like Octavia even wanted to be there, but she got her check. Good for her. Way to go. She's much better. She's a good actress. But man, you wouldn't have known if this is your first time watching a movie with her in it, because that was not it. Melissa McCarthy's in there doing typical Melissa McCarthy things, being fat and flying and falling around. That's pretty much, it's kind of it. Flopping. So this machine she's got that Emily, has in her laboratory gives Lydia superpowers, right? She has now the power of super strength and super durability. And then Emily's explaining it, and she's like, she's working on a way to give human beings superpowers so they can fight back against the miscreants. And this is her way of honoring her parents in death and finishing her parents' work. They don't really talk about her parents working on that. I think maybe they did in the beginning, but it's kind of very quick. But yeah, so she does this. She takes these pills instead of having to strap herself to a chair. She takes these pills that allows her to become invisible. Now she's invisible, and boom, there you go. They have this little training montage for the most part for Michelle McCarthy. She's over there breaking stuff. So they decide to form a little group and go out saving people and fighting crime and whatnot. So what do? They get themselves a purple Lamborghini, and they go out and they fight crime. Name themselves the Thunder Force, And here we go. All right. So some of the first few people they come across is Jason Bateman, and he's just like this like dude with crab hands, just got crab arms. I don't know. And he's in there saying just stupid. Yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't funny. And really to talk about this movie is just like, man, this movie is just terrible. Movie is bad. It's a very bad movie. And like for what it is, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple concept, right? So there's a political race that's ongoing while these miscreants are attacking the city, and these miscreant attacks are like are just happening faster and faster and more frequently. And there's a political election going on for the next mayor of Chicago. And the current mayor of Chicago is currently, and come to find out that the current mayor of Chicago is actually hiring miscreants to wreak all sorts of chaos and havoc and general tomfoolery amongst the general populace, and using that as a platform to make sure he gets reelected. He's also in cahoots with this girl who's working at Emily's factory, or Emily's laboratory, who Emily's daughter comes onto this, and she's like, she tells off she tells her mom and Melissa McCarthy, and they end up going to confront him, and turns out, wouldn't you know it, he's a miscreant himself. There's this big fight, and they win, they save the day, and there's a bomb involved that's going to blow up the city. It wasn't a fun movie. I just really prefer not to talk about it that much because it's really not that good of a movie. And it's like supposed to, you go in there thinking it's going to be a buddy cop kind of superhero movie. Like, yeah, okay, I'm with it. And there is no buddiness going on. Ain't a buddy in the world between the two of them. The scenes between them have no chemistry. So it's just like, man, this is just, what is going on here? And like, from a power standpoint, we've seen so many superhero movies that something like this just isn't that interesting from the concept of just superhero powers, just super strength. And then there's a lady going around named Laser shooting beams out of her hands. And it's like, it's never anything fun. It's like, man, yeah, it's cool. Good job. She is definitely doing her job of causing destruction, but it's very, very bland and basic. And the humor it's just a very unfunny movie. Come to find out that this movie is directed by Ben Falcone, who's like Melissa McCarthy's husband. And apparently, if you look it up, most of the movies that he directs all star her. And all the movies and there's only like 5 of them. And she's in, I believe, 4 out of the 5 or all of them. And the ones she's in are all terrible. So it's like, man, maybe I should tell you something. But I was more mad that Octavia Spencer didn't really do anything. Like, her character and the development of her character and any kind of emotion is about as invisible as the power she has. And you're just like, man, she's just invisible with the taser. Like, that's the most boring thing. It's a very boring, underwhelming movie that kind of just leaves you with a straight face the majority of the time. So, yeah, I'm going to give this movie 0, pretty much a big old goose egg.